Onde, Tapon Saint, Robin Zaptahola Minthorn and Ka. My name is Robin Zaptahola Minthorn. I'm an associate professor in the School of Education at UW Tacoma. I'm also director of doctoral programs in educational leadership and director of Indigenous education initiatives in the School of Education. I am answering these questions in regards to what community engagement means. But first, I want to acknowledge who I am and who I am connected to. I'm a citizen of the Kiowa tribe of Oklahoma. I'm a descendant of the Apache, Nez Perce, Umatilla, and Assiniboine tribes. I was born in Pendleton, Oregon, and I was raised in Oklahoma. I am a Sotai, a Codice, Calisay, a Williams, and a Connor are my families. I am a guest on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Puyallup. I live, work, and am responsible to these lands today. I acknowledge that I've only been living in Washington State going on my third year now, and have been very, very grateful and honored to cultivate and help support a relationship that we currently have in existence with the Muckleshoot Indian tribe. So what does a community engagement mean to me? Community engagement is the very existence of who I am because I am an Indigenous scholar. I'm an Indigenous relative, a mother, an auntie, a sister, a granddaughter, a daughter. And so for me, what it means to be community engaged means I am responsible to the community. I'm responsible to uplifting and building relationships to create better futures for our children, our grandchildren. And as a scholar, it means that I am responsible to cultivate that in my living work, whether that is through my scholarship, through my research, through my teaching, and through the connections that I build at UW Tacoma and in the broader community, whether it's tribal communities or non-tribal communities. And so when I think about what community engagement means to me, it's something that I have done since the very inception of me being a faculty back at the University of New Mexico. I was very grateful to already have, some mentors and some scholars who were doing that work to help me be a role model for me and share with me what they were doing, for me to be able to witness what they were doing. So I'm grateful to that, and I want to honor their legacies as well. I also want to honor the ancestral knowledge and wisdom that we have within us as Indigenous scholars, us as human beings, and for us to acknowledge that we are always centered and connected to place. And I think that is pivotal. And we think about community engagement, that we know whose land we're on, we know who we're responsible to, we know the history of that land, we know the real history, not just the history that is touted on websites and touted in history books, but a history that is not always living in those documents, but always a part of the ancestral legacy of that space and that place. So to me, when I think about community engagement, it means for us to be authentic in who we are, for us to be learners, always open to learning, always open to giving and acknowledging our responsibility as scholars and as faculty, and that we are in community regardless of whether or not we see and acknowledge that lives in our work, and that we are connected to various communities. And so what I would like you to know about the scholarship that I believe that I was acknowledged for in the community centered engagement was through the work that we have had with the Muckleshoot tribe. We have had this partnership in place since we started with our first connection in September of 2019, when just like a month after I started my position. I was reached out to from one of the staff members from the Muckleshoot Tribal College, interested in our graduate school information and interested in knowing more about us. And so I offered to go visit the community and go share with them what I knew. Even though I was newer, I wanted to go build community. And so I thought it was important for me to drive out to Muckleshoot, to Auburn, to be able to see where they were at, to learn from them, but also to share what I knew. And so we started to cultivate that relationship in that first meeting in September. And then that became an iteration of several meetings. where most of our meetings were then held between at Muckleshoot Tribal Community on the Muckleshoot Tribal College campus. And so I was able to go with myself, but also have Ashley Walker from the School of Education and our EDD program advisor. She went as well to many of those meetings, and we built a connection with Amy Maharaj, to Dr. Janice Bill. And we shared about the EDD program, the Masters in Education program, and we also, and we also shared about, you know, what were the opportunities that we could build and create. And so one of the things that that ended up unfolding is that we shared the degrees that we have, and we let them choose what they felt was going to be helpful for them at the time. And so we were able to then decide that it was the EDD program that they wanted to build a connection to. We also held one meeting on campus at the UW-Tacoma campus. We also then added not too much longer after that, Dr. Michelle Montgomery, who was also a part of that work and has now been a part of that work since the late 2019, early 2020. And so wanting to acknowledge that this is a collective group of work. It's not just my work, it's our work. And so in February of 2020, we were able to sign a memorandum of agreement with the tribe to have an Indigenous doctoral cohort. And we were able to have offer that, and with some stipulations that we would have Native faculty teaching the classes, that we would have our classes taught on the Muckleshoot tribal lands, that we would focus on recruiting Native doctoral students or students who have worked with Indigenous and tribal communities. And so we were able to get that MOA signed and work through the system, as well to acknowledge that there was also other co-conspirators who are a part of that work as well to help us maintain and facilitate that community engaged partnership. And that we also were able to start recruiting our first cohort in late spring of 2020. And so we were able to then have that partnership and actually have our first cohort of Muckleshoot doctoral students in summer of 2020. And we also couldn't have predicted at the time when we were talking about this that there would actually be a COVID-19 pandemic. And so we had to navigate that and make adjustments, and also listen to the community and acknowledge that it was them facilitating and guiding what they wanted to do. And so, so that is what ended up happening. Is we have a Muckleshoot doctoral cohort that has been in place. They are currently now in their second year. It's been a co-collaboration from the very beginning, from our first initial meetings to helping us design our recruitment flyers, to us doing information sessions together, to us having them a part of our admissions interviews and review process, to them helping us as we go through our curriculum process and indigenizing that, to us bringing faculty, Native faculty into our program. We also have a Muckleshoot Partnership Education Committee, which is also the focus on this doctoral cohort, but we have try to have equal representation of Muckleshoot tribal members, as well as UW Native faculty and staff and administrators on that committee to help keep us accountable. And we have been meeting since spring of 2020. And this is also an opportunity for us to give updates, but also for them to give us feedback and input on things that we can do to improve our partnership. And so it's really important when we talk about partnership, how we are intentional about that, how we are willing to listen to the community, how we're willing to co-create what we're doing. And so that's something that I really appreciate about this partnership, that it has been a process where we have a deep love and respect for each other. And so how this is mutually beneficial is like, it's an opportunity for me to learn and grow with this community. It's an opportunity for me to build relationships, which is something that's very important to me. For them, I think it's also an opportunity for them to have more Muckleshoot tribal members who have a doctoral degree, not only within the Muckleshoot tribe, but also statewide. There are tribal members across the state who are part of this. We have a few non-Indigenous. students as well who are committed to Indigenous communities. And so it is all of that that is going to be a benefit not only to me, but to our future generations, and just acknowledging what that means for us. And so, what is the advice that I could give is to other faculty that are interested in community engaged work is for you to put aside your ego, for you to put aside what you think needs to happen, and for you to just be willing to listen, to learn, to contribute, to grow a relationship and a partnership that is not necessarily self seeking for anything that you may get in return, but for you to contribute. We all have a responsibility to our communities, whether it's locally within the Tacoma community, or whether it's with tribal communities, or whether it's within other communities around the area in the South Puget Sound. And what I would also like to share with you all is, like, one of the things that came out of this is that we actually have an article that was co-published from Dr. Bill and Dr. Michelle Montgomery and myself called Reclaiming Emotions. And we talk about what we saw unfold in our first couple of quarters with the Muckleshoot cohort is that they have built a strong cohort relationship where they are able to share their full selves in their classes. They're able to reclaim who they are and also share their emotions, and that's something beautiful that is cultivated and lives in that space where there's all Indigenous people, or mostly Indigenous people, who understand Indigenous realities. And so there's so much more that will probably unfold and come out of this partnership. But one of the things that's so beautiful about all of this is that this is also being done at the UW Tacoma campus, through the UW Tacoma campus, but the education itself will take place on tribal lands. It's the first, to my knowledge, and only Indigenous doctoral cohort or program offered on tribal lands. And so that's something that we should all be proud of and grateful for, in regards to how we can just be an example for others who are looking to build authentic partnerships and relationships that are reciprocal and responsible to the community. And so thank you and so much for listening and being a part of this. And I wish you all the best as you continue to think about what does it mean to be in community and what does it mean to be a scholar. Many ahos.